All right, seventh graders, here's an answer key to the work that you completed yesterday. Just going through this today, this afternoon, most people who have answered it have done very well. However, we do have a few misconceptions that I do want to address to make sure we're all on the same page regarding the questions we answered today. So we were given a map. The map looks very similar to the map that we created on Google Earth last week. It shows us where volcanoes and earthquakes are. And our question was, which conclusions does the map support? So it gave us A through F of different conclusions. And I first want to go through the questions or the conclusions that were wrong. So A said there is plate movement between Europe and Asia. Does this map support this? The answer is no, this map does not support that there is plate movement between Europe and Asia. We do have a few earthquakes that happen in here, noted by the circles, but not enough to indicate that there is plate movement happening. C, there is movement between plates in Central Australia. Same thing, we see a few earthquakes, but not enough to indicate that there is a lot of plate movement happening. D, earthquakes and volcanoes happen only along plate boundaries. As we can see, they typically follow these lines of plate boundaries, but we do see some happening throughout that do not follow those major plate boundaries. Statement B, or conclusion B, is correct. This map does conclude that magma is flowing through the crust in eastern Africa. The way that we understand that that is correct is because we see these triangles in eastern Africa. Those triangles represent volcanoes. So if we see that volcanoes are happening, that indicates that there is magma flowing. Statement E, energy is released underground along the western coast of North America. So if I go to the western coast of North America, in your reading, it stated that energy is released when there's an earthquake. So that shifting of plates releases energy, and we see a lot of earthquakes or energy being released, so that is true. The last statement, F, there is movement between plates along the western coasts of South America. This one's a little tricky. So if we look at South America, we see that there are a lot of earthquakes. There are a lot of volcanoes popping up along the western edge of South America. However, we don't see a black line indicating a major plate. Although we don't see a plate boundary, this does indicate this heavy flow of earthquakes and volcanoes does indicate that there is some plate movement. So the reason we couldn't say that up here is because there's seldom a few that are happening, but down here there's this large pattern and we are frequently seeing earthquakes and volcanoes. So I did want to point out to you that although it's not a major plate, there is a smaller plate, as noted in your reading through Discovery Ed, that does kind of match up with the Pacific plate, but goes along this western edge here. And so because we saw all those volcanoes and all those earthquakes, we had a pretty good indicator that there was plate movement happening here. And although it wasn't on the major plate indicated in this map, the fact that there were so many earthquakes and volcanoes does tell us that there was plate movement occurring at this location. The second question that you had today was to input vocabulary words. So the Southern American plate and the African plate are moving apart. At volcanoes along this boundary, molten rock flows to Earth's surface. So we knew that volcanoes had to go there because that's where molten rock flows to the surface. At the same time, the South American plate is colliding with a denser Nazca plate. This is the small plate we just looked at the edge of South America, which is being destroyed. The collision forms mountains along the coast of South America. Again, where we saw those earthquakes and volcanoes, that plate being pushed together is going to create those. Okay, so those were your answer keys for this. If you have questions, let me know. And I will try to address them as we go along. Just want to make sure you guys are all staying on the same page and not getting lost with all the information that's coming your way.